welcome. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I often traditionally save a talk on gratitude for after Thanksgiving because sometimes in sort of like the post-analysis, there can be the sense of like, ugh, I should have been kinder. So we get to revisit this a little bit. It's been a while since I've actually sat down to a family Thanksgiving meal, but I know how challenging it can be. And I heard this one piece of advice I just have to share with you. You can use this at Christmas if that's there. And that's basically, if you can't see anything nice and you want to say something snarky around the table, say it in French. I can just imagine. I've never done this, but someday I will. Just to look someone in the eye with a big smile and say, Je dois dire que tu es complètement fou, et maintenant tu me fais peur. I'll let you translate that later. Holiday season is upon us. I love this quote from Dave Barry, as we're now in this full season, where he says, once again, we find ourselves enmeshed in the holiday season. That very special time of year when we join with our loved ones in a sharing centuries-old traditions, such as trying to find a parking space at the mall. We traditionally do this in my family by driving around the parking lot until we see a shopper emerge from the mall. Then we follow her, in very much the same spirit as the three wise men, who 2,000 years ago followed a star week after week until it led them to a parking space. So, Thanksgiving, I really know for some people it's heaven. And I know for some people it's hell. Thanksgiving, of course, is about giving thanks, but it's stunning how quickly we can regress. I remember going home at the age of 28, really on top of my game, feeling really good about myself and how I was manifesting my manhood in the world. And I was shocked that within 15 minutes, I had fully regressed to about age 13. So the bad news is that we can lose our sense of thanks. But the good news is we can actually change our states. And this whole holiday of Thanksgiving points toward a really powerful practice that can truly, literally change your life. Because when you feel grateful, you feel a sense of ease. You completely shift your relationship to the universe. And what I'd like to talk about is, first, to talk a little bit about what I think of as like the disease of non-gratitude. And to explore in a little bit of detail the nature of a selfish self. Like, what is the nature of this self-preservational self, and how do we shift it? And to talk about not just theoretically how gratitude can cultivate a radical shift, but what are the practices that can cultivate a shift? And how, finally, to talk a little bit about how the lens of gratitude changes your perception of what's possible. At the very end, I'll share three things that are tremendous practices. So you have to wait till the end for those. So we have this disease of non-gratitude. Dale Carnegie, many, many years ago, he talked about how everyone's listening to the same radio station, WIFM. What's in it for me? I ran across some examples of self-centeredness. A man held up a Wendy's in Atlanta, Georgia, and he called him twice to complain about how little money he got, which is nothing compared to this guy named Arthur Bundridge in Syracuse, New York. He held up a bank and demanded $20,000. When he got home, he discovered he was shortchanged, and he stormed back to the bank to complain, which, of course, was when he was arrested. So self-centeredness runs the world, doesn't it? And if you were with family, or if you think back to your times around the table with family, do you ever notice that that some people would tell the same story every year in exactly the same way, the same exact intonations as they did the year before. I've always been amazed by that. This ritual of telling the stories of the family legacy. It's kind of cool in a way. It cements in the sense of identity, but it can also be kind of limiting. Because what it does is just a wonderful example of how we live in this self-reinforcing narrative that keeps our world in one piece. And there could be something really healthy about that. You know, the world being held in one piece. This is our family story. This is my story. But it can also be a limitation. And so when we start to practice mindfulness or non-judging awareness, we actually start to deconstruct those stories. We deconstruct the conditioned self, which can be incredibly disorienting, but at the same time, can really open up some new possibilities in your life. So instead of like, what's in it for me, some new possibilities can emerge sometimes. Sometimes when you start to notice the nature of this selfish self, you start to see it more and more everywhere you look. Some complaints from a travel bureau. This just blows my mind. A guest at a Novotel in Australia complained that his soup was too thick. What he didn't realize, he was inadvertently slurping gravy. Someone wrote how it's lazy for the local shopkeepers in Puerto Vallarta to close in the afternoons. I often needed to buy things during siesta time. This should be banned. Someone else wrote, on my holiday to Goa in India, I was disgusted to find that almost every restaurant served curry. I don't like spicy food. Oh my God. This is maybe the ultimate. Someone complained, my fiance and I requested twin beds when we booked, but instead we were placed in a room with a king bed. We now hold you responsible and want to be reimbursed for the fact that I became pregnant. This would not have happened if you'd put us in a room that we had booked. Whew, pretty sad. But we all have this tendency to do this, to preserve our sense of self, our separate self. We live in this self-preservational mode. And of course, the more you're bound up by this tight sense of self, this tight sense of control, the more you hold on. And the nature of stress and suffering is the degree you hold on. To that same degree, you're going to feel stress and anxiety and suffering. So what we do in this practice is to take a closer look at that stress and that suffering. To look at it, who it is that thinks it's suffering and to see if there are other options here. And this is the power and the potency of meditation practice. And it's also the power of learning how to shift your attention to more resourceful states, like gratitude. Some describe the practice as training your mind to look for the good. It's kind of a cool description. You're training yourself to look for your good. Now, possible to overdo this. There was a time way back when I was overcome with a sense of how powerful gratitude and appreciation is. And it is. And we'll talk more about what happens physiologically when you tune into gratitude and appreciation. So I started a journal process. And to be honest, I'm a bit of a zealot. When I take something on, I kind of get a little extreme. So I made these rules for myself. Every single day, I would write down 10 things I was grateful for. The secondary rule was no repeating, because I wanted to keep it fresh, keep scanning, keep looking for the good. So the first couple days were really powerful. And then it got harder because I couldn't repeat what I was grateful for. I found myself, in order to complete my assignment of 10 things I was grateful for, I started listing the body parts that didn't hurt. My right thumb feels good. The knuckle on my second finger feels great. And I just got to move through, kept my list going. It's a bit of a scam, but it was still somewhat helpful. And there's actually something really powerful in acknowledging the body parts that don't hurt in this particular moment. I've had some great opportunities to teach, living in the DC area. Presented for the staff and other people interested in the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives, the National Security Council for CEOs. I did an 8-week series for the DC Superior Court justices, and I had this invitation for another program, and I was so stuck. It was for, it was a pretty big deal. For me, it was like one of those stretch things. And I had way too many options in what I could say and the amount of time I had. And I didn't know how to focus on it. Got closer and closer to having to actually show up and do something. And I started getting more and more anxious, and it just sort of like shut me down. So I remembered this exercise, and I'm going to share this with you. It's about how you can use gratitude as a way to change your state. It's very, very simple. And I always find, I trust the things that are the most simple, because the most simple things generally are the most powerful. What I'll be guiding you through is adapted from the great, great mystic Sri Sri Tony Robbins Das. And essentially what you do is you're sustaining attention on gratitude, and you're kind of revisiting the issue that you're exploring. So the first thing I had to do was ask myself, what am I grateful for? And I thought, wow, I'm so grateful for this life where I get to be creative, where I get to be in front of extraordinary people who have a lot of impact on the world, and kind of sat with that and breathed into that, sort of felt that. And again, part of this training in mindfulness is moving from the story to how it lives in your nervous system. So I could kind of feel my heart full and little bubbly feelings inside. The second step is to think of another thing or person that you're grateful for. So I just thought to myself, I am so grateful to be with people who are open to this stuff, who are open to new challenges. And as I thought about that, I just thought about all the people I've interacted with, and the people who are interested in these teachings and these practices. And I could feel like an expansive feeling, and I was kind of getting bigger, and I just sort of watched that feeling inside. And the third step is to think of a third thing or a third person or a third event that you're grateful for. And I just thought to myself, I'm just grateful to be healthy and grateful to be alive. And so I reflected on that, and my good health, and the things I get to do in my body, and back to like the things that don't hurt in my body. And that felt really, really good and really, really expansive. And the next step is to kind of open up that sense of gratitude and to think about all the ways that I'm blessed. And so I just thought about all the kindnesses I've experienced in this life, all the opportunities I've had in this life, all the good people I've had the occasion to spend time with, feeling safe, as safe as I could feel, the opportunities I've had, and letting it get bigger and bigger and bigger. Then the next is to complete the following phrase, kind of returning back to that original issue. What I most need to focus on is, and it was immediate. Okay, I need to get everyone on the same page. I need to establish a sense of connection and safety. I need to talk about the science of mindfulness, and then I'll do at least 3 layered experiences on top of each other. Boom, I got the whole design. Pretty cool. But later I thought, what exactly happened there? And I realized that I had moved from a place of like fear and anxiety and scarcity to a place of gratitude and appreciation and possibility, simply by sustaining my attention on gratitude and appreciation. I found myself moving from dread to openness to actually excitement and enthusiasm. So I'd like to offer this experience to you. And this only takes about 5 to 7 minutes. So the first thing you want to do is think about something it's a little problematic in your life. And again, as I often say, you might not want to choose your biggest soul wound or your biggest arch enemy in life, unless you really want to. But just think of something problematic going on in your life. So if you like, you can close your eyes and I'll walk you through this process. So take 3 slow breaths. Bring into mind some issue that you feel drawn to exploring, getting some new perspective on. It can be as simple as, what should I do this weekend? Or it might be a conflict or a challenge at work. And as you breathe, take a moment to kind of sense, what does this issue feel like inside? Like, what's the hardest thing about this? Just kind of getting in touch with it, getting familiar with it. It'll take a few more moments for you to kind of land on this issue and sense what it's like right now. And now, if you would, bring into mind someone, something that you're grateful for in your life. I always like to say, if you can't think of something, just make it up. And if you would, see if you can visualize it. Are there any sounds you associate with it? And most importantly, where do you feel this on the inside? And you might use your breath, slow down and deepen your breath. Let this know you see it. You might bring your hand to where you feel it the most predominant on the inside. And just sense why this is significant to you. And if you would, bring into your mind now something else, someone, something, some event, something that you're grateful for, that you appreciate in your life. And again, refresh this sense of investigating it. Is there a visual representation? Are there any sounds or words? And as you breathe, notice where you feel this on the inside. Acknowledge why this is significant to you. Can you let this feeling inside get big? And now moving your attention to a third thing, a person, an event, something in your life that you feel grateful for. Can you visualize it? How intimately can you feel it? Can you let that feeling get big? And now, if you would, take a moment just to reflect as you feel the cumulative effect of these 3 things. Can you now expand your attention to reflect on all the ways that you've been blessed in your life? all those who have made a difference, made a contribution to you in your life, the opportunities in your life, all the ways you've been blessed. Let that feeling get big. How big could that feeling get? And now bring your attention back to this particular issue that you're dealing with right now, and let yourself just spontaneously complete the following phrase. What I most need to focus on here is. And just notice if there's any kind of shift. If you like, you can open your eyes or you can remain with them closed. I hope you found that helpful. I hope you got a taste of that. Because to my mind, tuning into gratitude is a consciousness shift. Training ourselves to look for the good, to sustain attention. It's very powerful. It shifts your physiology, but it also opens your intuition because it shifts your consciousness. You're moving less from the self-preserved I into the sense of the mystery. And it's tied into something called evolutionary biology. And this suggests that we actually have the free will to start an upward spiral of well-being, where we can kick in small acts of generosity and gratitude that have this very, very powerful effect. Again, I think of it as this upward spiral. There was a study, quite a few years ago, like 8 years ago, called the neural correlates of gratitude. And what it suggested was that gratitude and appreciation appear to be huge agents that hold our social fabric together. Gratitude and generosity, it nurtures and fortifies our connectedness. It stimulates what we call moral cognition, kind of our shared values. It stimulates the anterior cingulate cortex, if you're interested, as well as the medial prefrontal cortex. And so it's very interesting when you feel that shift from gratitude or generosity, either being generous or receiving generosity. You might just feel your medial prefrontal cortex start to tingle a little bit. Be on the lookout for that. Gratitude also builds resourcefulness. When interviewing Holocaust survivors, the one thing the study noted was that the memory of the smallest acts of kindness, a piece of bread, being sheltered, helps them hold on to their humanity and find inner strength. So learning how to cultivate this sense of gratitude into your life, super, super helpful. A gratitude journal. When Tara and I have our check-ins, we have 3 questions to kind of help us communicate better. The first one is, what are you grateful for? And it's always amazing. Those check-ins, I'm a guy. I don't look forward to them. Actually, I do now. But initially, it's like, oh my God, what is it I'm not aware of that's going to be brought to my attention? When we take time for gratitude, when I can name what I'm grateful for, when I hear what my partner's grateful for, it just softens the whole field. And it opens up the next 2 questions. What's challenging in your life? Just to be able to name it and not be judged, very helpful. To hear what Tara's going through, what her challenges are, it kind of opens up empathy. And then that opens us up to the 3rd question, which is, what's between us and feeling clear? What's between us and feeling love? And it allows us to kind of name that hard stuff. There's this basic thing in life. also kind of based on yoga philosophy, that energy follows awareness. Whatever you focus on, that's where the energy tends to move. And it has huge implications for how we get through life. When you look for the good, you tend to see the good. When you focus on danger, you tend to see danger. And it also has huge implications on how we're going to thrive, if we can thrive as a species. So the final thing I'd like to talk about is how this lens of gratitude can shift our perception in the most powerful and dynamic ways. There are a number of traditions that have had this observation from those who have practiced in depth. And by I mean practice, I think, well, what I mean is those who have really, really looked at the nature of reality. You know, those who have explored this release of self, of I, the concept of I, me, and mine. And what I've heard in a number of traditions is that after awakening, whatever that means, but you could say after seeing clearly into the nature of reality, the first thing you do is you spontaneously bow to your greatest challenges, to the greatest obstructions in your life. When I first heard that, I thought, how can that be? You know, you've been battling your demons. And how is it that when you awaken, you would actually be grateful for them? But I hear this a lot. And I know, having worked with people who are really committed to transformation, like really committed to seeing more clearly, that I'll hear people say things like this. It was so unbelievably painful that my father withheld approval from me. But that pain forced me to find my own power. Someone who shared the trauma and the insecurity in my home as a kid, it showed me that I had a gift for helping people. Or in my family, I felt like the odd one out. I was too sensitive. I was too artistic. I never felt understood. But I'm so grateful that incentivized me to get on a search and on a path. Or others saying, because I never felt safe as a kid, I'm so grateful I've developed this sensitivity and skill at making other people feel safe. Whew. That's powerful stuff. And this is part of changing the context of gratitude, to be grateful for our opportunity to grow. That's a big one. Here's a reading you might enjoy. If you like, you can close your eyes for this. You will lose everything. Your money, your power, your fame, your success, perhaps even your memories. Your looks will go. Loved ones will die. Your body will fall apart. Everything that seems permanent is impermanent and will be smashed. Experience will gradually, or not so gradually, strip away everything that it can strip away. Waking up means facing this reality with open eyes and no longer turning away. But right now, we stand on sacred and holy ground. For that which will be lost has not yet been lost. And realizing this is the key to unspeakable joy. Whoever or whatever is in your life right now has not yet been taken away from you. This may sound trivial, obvious, like nothing, but really, it is the key to everything. The why and how and wherefore of existence. Impermanence has already rendered everything and everyone around you so deeply holy and significant and worthy of your heartbreaking gratitude. Loss has already transfigured your life into an altar. That's intense. But what if we wake up? What if we realize that if everything can be taken away, what I have right now, which has not yet been taken away, is sacred? That sense of embracing impermanence can blast open these doors to gratitude. And so, in the face of all this, we need to continue to look for the good. There's so much bad news out there. When we take in the damage that we've done to this planet and to the ecosystem, when we think about the effect of institutionalized racism, when we think about the impact of dominant culture on non-dominant cultures, when we think about the marginalization of the LGBTQ community, when we think about the suffering of animals, there's no question that we are experiencing environmental degradation and upheaval. I don't know if it's like never before, but it kind of feels like it. Gratitude is not about denying that, but it's also, as Mr. Rogers famously said when he was upset and his mother said to him, look for the helpers. Wherever there is suffering, look for the helpers. And so I couldn't help but look for, in the midst of all this, is there anything good going on? So we look for the good. And I found a couple things. And again, this is not about pretending that there isn't tremendous work and tremendous suffering. But I was surprised to find a couple facts, and I'd just like to share these with you. 25 years ago, there were 0 humpback whales off the coast of Seattle. Now there are 500, with a record number of calves. There are positive numbers for endangered gorilla species. Due to a cutback in poaching, there were 0 rhinos poached in Kenya last year, which is falling for the 5th year in a row. After a palm oil moratorium in Indonesia, rainforests are starting to be preserved again. In China, malaria went from 30 million to 0. China has now been certified malaria-free by the World Health Organization. The area of forests regrown since the year 2000 covers the size of France, potentially absorbing a full year of U.S. emissions. America's largest solar panel maker leads the world in panel recycling recovery. 95% of the materials are now being recycled. I think about this practice of gratitude in the context of Buddhist philosophy, which is not optimistic nor pessimistic, but it's realistic. What is actually true? And while it's easy to fall off one side or the other, to be pathologically positive and pretend there's nothing wrong in this world, or to focus solely on suffering and pain and injustice. Part of the reality is that while we are in tremendous upheaval, that there are helpers. That when you can tap into gratitude and appreciation, it can actually help you to shift your consciousness, to be able to respond to this world of challenge and suffering, personal and societal, to give you a little more resources. It's not a way of avoiding pain, but it may be a way of meeting pain with an open heart. So I wanted to share, kind of in conclusion here, these 3 qualities of people who are vibrantly alive. And I just found this to be helpful and inspiring, because I'm always looking on how I can hack my life, avoid pain, bring in more pleasure. So the first quality of people who are vibrantly alive, they think about death a lot. And as you know, when you're visited by death, it reframes your life. Quite often, only momentarily, because the trance comes over us again. But when you think about death and you embrace this fact of impermanence, when you realize that even though everything and everyone will be taken away from you, but not yet, boom, gratitude. You have this moment. You have these people in your life now. The second thing is they appreciate the pancakes. And by that, I mean people who have a vibrant sense of aliveness find joy and gratitude in the details, in the granular. For myself, my morning cup of coffee, possibly the peak experience of my day. But I have found a way to make it as special as I can, so I can really, really savor it. So training yourself to look for the granular things that you can be grateful for. It's in the details. The third quality is finding a larger context for gratitude. And here, by this, it's about actually cultivating a sense of gratitude for the growth opportunities in your life. This, of course, takes some training and takes some practice. But realizing when you're learning something new, it's challenging, but the gratitude to be able to learn it, the excitement about learning, the excitement about developing mastery, which leads us to that sense of those after awakening who offer a bow to their obstacles, because it's only through the obstacles that there's a recognition of where awakening can occur, by stripping away the sense of I and mine and clinging and holding on. So I love those 3. To think about impermanence a lot, to recognize and remember that everything is going to change, to be grateful for what you have, to appreciate the small things, and to appreciate and have gratitude for the opportunities in your life to grow. So that's what I got on gratitude. Why don't we close with a short yet brief yet truncated and not long meditation. If you like, you can close your eyes. If you like, you might very gently bring your hand to your heart, not required. And just notice If your hand is on your heart, just this inner state of receptivity and gratitude. Take a moment, if you would, to think of one thing in your life you're grateful for. Breathe. Notice if you can feel that inside. And if you would, bring in now a second thing you're grateful for. Can you see it? Can you feel it? And now a third thing you're grateful for. Feel all the ways that you have been blessed in this life. The miracle of being awake and alive in this body. And as you reflect on your journey, let yourself just fill in, complete the following phrase. What I most need to remember in my life right now is. If you like, you can gently deepen the breath. If you like, you can open your eyes. You can remain with them closed. There's so much I'm grateful for in my life. I'm grateful for these practices that have made all the difference between suffering and feeling happy and free, more and more joyful in my life. Tremendously grateful for the opportunity to share them, to know there are others who are turned on by this. Very, very grateful for you, and grateful for all the support that I have in my life as well. Blessings to you in your practice. May your practice be filled with joy and with ridiculous amounts of happiness. Take good care.